Welcome to the finish line with So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and today I would like to get my table runners quilted. Now, not all things that are quilted need to have a quilt batting inside. In a case like this, we don't necessarily need it. What I like to use is flannel. Just one piece of flannel along the back and my top, and I quilt it just like I would normally quilt any quilt. It gives it the look of being quilted. It just doesn't give that thickness, and I don't need the warmth for the table. I just need this as decoration. Now, whenever I put flannel on the back of anything, I make sure that I wash that flannel first. Flannel does shrink different than quilting cotton. So I do wash it with warm water and I put it in a warm dryer until it's dried. Then I just give it a light pressing and I'm ready to use it. Now I'm going to quilt this with my upside down backwards technique. I do have a video where I talk about that and I can put that link in the description. But what I like to do is I mark the back fabric that I'm putting on my quilt. And I'm going to quilt it looking at the back. It's easy to mark a nice big white or solid piece of fabric than a fabric that has lots of different patterns to it. And that makes it go really easy. Now, I did want to duplicate the flowers in this table runner, and I was able to find a free pattern from Urban Elements. And it's a flower, and it's called Plumera, but it has little points, so it sort of is going to read as the poinsettias. Now, this free pattern, when you do download it, it's going to come with 2 pages, page 1 and page 2, and those are going to go together to make that pattern. So you're going to have to print out as many pages as you want to get the size that you want. When you tape those all together, you are going to be able to make yourself a nice, great big pantograph. And that's what I use to mark my quilts. So I put this paper out on a light surface, and then I take that backing fabric, and I do want to draw on that good side. I take a marker that's going to fade out, wash out, or I can iron it out. And I'm going to just trace right over top of that. I can move it as I need. I can do whatever marks I need to do on this backing fabric. And then I could put those 2 pieces together. It is a great technique. It's a lot of fun to do, and it's so much easier marking the back of a quilt than it is marking the front of the quilt. It's so much easier to see. The flannel does have a tendency to stick to another fabric, which is even a better bonus when you are quilting things together. So I have all of that drawing on the back. I did put some pins in just because this is very long and I want to hold it together. But if you're doing a small project, chances are you won't even need those pins. So I have the front of the runner and the back of the runner. Now, when you are doing this upside down quilting, you have to keep in mind that you are not looking at this front fabric. So we have to make sure that when we get to those edges, that the edges stay flat and that we're not quilting them so that they've rolled over. So I like to put a row of pins all the way around the outside. That shows me where my edge is, and it also helps prevent that fabric from rolling. Now, because I did use a pantograph, I'm able to quilt from one side all the way to the other. And the table runner was not large, so I only need 3 patterns. This is going to be done really quick. Now, when you are drawing this pattern onto the back of the fabric, draw it as you are going to quilt it. So keep that continuous line as you are drawing. What that's going to do is help the memory memorize that pattern. So what it has already done in my mind, I've already quilted 3 rows of this pattern, yet I didn't quilt it at all. I just did it with my pen. But now when I actually get to the machine and start to quilt it, I have that memory. So it goes together a lot faster. So I'm going to start quilting. I'm going to start on one side and go all the way to the other. Now I'm going to be quilting this on my sit-down Q20, but by all means you can do this just on a regular machine. I do have those pins that are marking that point. So I do want to peek underneath and make sure that everything is flat. I will be quilting off of the pattern and then quilt all the way, going right back off of the pattern. And then it's going to be trimmed down later. I'm going to bring my threads up and I'm going to start quilting. This area, I'm going to go nice and slow to make sure that I don't fold that over. I still like to use gloves just so that it's easier to grip. Stitch a little, take a peek, and make sure that you have not flipped that over. And to be very honest with you, I'm not concerned about hitting those lines exactly. Those lines are going to disappear and you're never going to notice it. It's more important for me to have a smooth movement. It's going to look beautiful regardless if you follow those lines or not. So I'm starting from one side and I'm going to go all the way to the other side. So I've come close to the end of this pattern. And even though I have those pins marked so I know where my beginning and my ending is, I will always make sure that it is flat. You can usually feel it as well. Now, as I am going to continue this pattern, I'm not going to be able to do a continuous line because there is no pattern to do that continuous. So I'm going to go as far as I can, just stitch down. I know there is no quilt in this area, and I'm just going to fill in the spots, just make the pattern look as close as I can to the others. I'm not worried if I have to come out and just change it a little bit. This is the area where I know that I'm off the quilt, so I'm not worried about that. I'm going to come in, and you can see there's no pattern there. So I'm going to come off, and this is the area where I want to make sure that that's not going to flip over, and continue. So this is all quilted, and I did not lose or fold over any of those edges. I'm going to peek and make sure everything is straight. Right, now I can start. My border's still fine. So you can see my stitching didn't always hit those lines, but once that ink has faded, it's going to look fine. So this is the before, and there is the after. So when you look at the right side, it's very hard to see that stitching, but it is quilted. Those lines were definitely a lot easier to see than if I had marked this top. So here's a quilt that I've had for many, many years, and I put it on the table all the time. It is my tablecloth, and it was done the same way with just that flannel backing. You can see it does have some stains from being used, but it did keep those fabrics together. It was easy to wash. That flannel made it nice and soft for the table and has a nice drape for a tablecloth. That flannel on the back really is a lot of fun to do. And if you look, you can see that there's no batting inside. So if I put a wine glass here, it is nice and thin, so I don't have to worry about any tipping. So that one long table runner is now ready for the binding. It's going to wash up easy, it quilted nice, and it has a beautiful quilted look and is still kept it nice and thin. It's definitely a fun way of doing some quilting. Thank you for joining me today on So Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I do have a newsletter. It's all free under So Very Easy. And when I do get this done, I'm going to post a picture of it completed on my table on my Facebook or my Instagram, so you can stay tuned for that. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and be sure to make every day a so-tacular day. Bye for now.